came back for the challenge. I'm so excited. I need your help. Charlie has these little toy trains, and I got out my ruler to measure it, but I have a problem. I found the inches side. I lined up the beginning of the ruler with the beginning of my train, but then I noticed something. I noticed that it didn't end at the 2, but it also didn't quite make it to the 3. So would I say that this train is more like 2 inches or more like 3 inches? Well, today I'm going to teach you a little trick that will help you figure out how to measure something if it doesn't end exactly at one of the numbers that is one of your inches, okay? So take a look closely here. Do you see how there's all these tick marks before I get to the 1? And then there's all these different tick marks before I get to the 2. It's a little hard to see, so I blew it up and I drew kind of a bigger version of the first 2 inches of my ruler. And I drew some of those same tick marks. Well, it turns out one of these tick marks is a little bit longer than the other tick marks. And that means that this is about the halfway point. And since we just did our fraction lessons, we know how to write that. That longest tick mark in between the 0 and the 1 means that something is half an inch, okay? And then if I keep going in between the 1 and the 2, I have the same thing. I have tick, 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 tick marks, and then there's this one long tick mark. Because it's in between the 1, but not quite to the 2, I would say that this is 1.5 inches, okay? Now here's the part that's cool. If you're measuring something and it doesn't quite make it to the halfway mark, then you would say it's closer to 1 inch. But if you are measuring something and it goes past that 1.5 mark, then you would say it's closer to the 2 inch mark, okay? So let's practice this with a couple of different lines that I've drawn. Again, I'm going to line up the beginning of my ruler with the beginning of this line. Boop. And then I'm going to look very, very closely. There's my halfway mark. The black line that I'm measuring goes past that halfway mark. So I can see that it is closer to the 3 than it is to the 2. That means I can say this line is about 3 inches. It's not exactly 3 inches, but I can say that it is about 3 inches long, okay? Let's take a look at our next line. I'll line up the beginning of my ruler with the beginning of the line, and then take a look. It goes past the 5. It's not quite to the 6. There's that long tick mark. It doesn't make it to that long tick mark. The black line stops before that. So I can say that my line is closer to 5 inches than it is to 6 inches. So I will write that my line is about 5 inches. About 5 inches. Okay? Take a look at this next one. Before I measure it, I want you to notice that it's longer than the other 2 lines I've measured. So I can bet that it's going to be more than 3 inches, more than 5 inches, right? I can estimate that because I can see it's longer than those other 2 lines. Let's line up the beginning of our ruler with the beginning of the line. And then take a look. There's the halfway mark, okay? It's past the 8. It's not quite to the 9. And most importantly, it's past that halfway mark. So is it closer to the 8 or closer to the 9? Looks to me like it's closer to the 9, so I'm going to write that it is about 9 inches. All right, ready for the last one? First thing we're going to do is take a look and make an estimate. If this line was about 3 inches, and this line was about 5 inches, and this line was about 9 inches, About how long do you think this one is? I know that it's going to be less than 9 because it's definitely shorter than this line. And I can't quite tell, but it looks like it's going to be a little shorter than the 5, a little longer than the 3. Let's measure and see. Beginning of the ruler with the beginning of the line. Look really closely. See if you can find the halfway mark. Would you say that this is about 4 inches or about 5 inches? If you said about 4, I agree with you because it's not past the halfway line yet. That means it's closer to the 4. We'll say that it's about 4 inches, which makes a lot of sense because if this one was 3 and this one was 5, this one looks like it's about in between, about 4 inches. All right, way to challenge yourself to come back for the last video. If you have a ruler or a measuring tape at home, I hope that you will try out some measuring of your own, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.